Hey, everybody, welcome to Black Tea. This is the podcast all about Black women in advertising. I'm your host, Michelle Lawrence, and I'm here today with Chanée Hylton. Hi, Chanée.
Hi.
Hi. Please tell everybody what you do and where you're based.
Okay, so I'm essentially a creative marketing strategist and I'm based in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay, cool. How did you find your way into this advertising world?
So I didn't have a word for it or an understanding of it early on, but I've always been drawn to kind of like how do customers appeal to brands? Like how does marketing work? But I didn't know the word yet because I was still in like high school.
Mhm.
I did a lot of like designing and a lot of like creative direction for things, not fully understanding that like I could turn this into like a full blown situation. And then I graduated and I went to Penn State and I was like, I'm going to do whatever I can to fully understand marketing and advertising a bit more. I interned at Publicis, I interned at IPG, just a bunch of different places and a bunch of different departments, SEO departments and art departments all over the place. Just trying to like fully understand and get like the full breadth of like what is advertising.
Yeah.
And I think that's just kind of like what really got me here ultimately. I feel like I've always had a very non-traditional background and somehow, this is where we ended up. But I like what I've done and I love my journey. And I think that I've learned a lot of rewarding things along the way.
Okay, two things. First of all, let me see those nails because that was real cute. You did it in passing. They're so cute. Oh my
Thank
gosh, so good. I love it. Obsessed. Okay.
you. Thank you.
Secondly, I think it's funny that you took like almost a strategist approach to learning about strategy. Like you were a strategist in that process before you even knew it. The fact that you were like, oh, let me do some research. Oh, let me do some, I'm gonna test this one out, test this one out, test this one out. Like it
Yeah,
was
good
in you.
point.
It was in you from the start, apparently. So that's really funny to hear. Um, okay, being in the strategy space, I'm curious to you, what are the like must-haves of a strong strategy? Like what makes a strategy like, okay, that's a real one versus like what do some people maybe think that makes something a strategy, but it doesn't.
Okay, so I think some key elements of strategy are thoroughly understanding what the goal is that your client has in mind, and then being able to extract a like solid objective to make sure that the work that comes from that is informed in something. I think so quickly with strategy, you can get lost in the sauce because there's so much you can extract, especially in like the research aspect of it all,
Mhm.
that can kind of confuse the direction that you were initially going. So I think like the North Star is always the goal, always the objective, and then kind of like seeing whatever the challenge might be or the barrier that's in the way, and just moving on that and using the insights that you do pull to kind of inform what's going on with the situation and how you can kind of remedy the situation based off of the insights that you're pulling. I think are super important, and then obviously knowing your audience. Knowing qualitative things as well as quantitative things about them are so important because both can really impact the way that your research is going essentially. And then lastly, I think is something that's really important is to be able to tell a story very well. I think some people are very traditional in the way that they approach strategy, and they don't necessarily want to add the extra context or the extra color that could really make marketing strategy like the most impactful, because at the end of the day whoever you're presenting to is a human, so you want to make sure that it's hitting that human aspect and that it's really resonating with people in that way, because that'll really definitely tell you like, okay, this strategy is actually super golden. Yeah, I think those are like the key elements for me that I think matter.
Yeah, I noticed that you didn't say like a catchy insight line that you insist that the creative team works into all of their language. So, hey, all you strategists out there, please take
Yeah,
note.
no, I yeah, let the creative team do what they can with the information you give them. I think a strong strategic upfront is important. And from it, the creative should be inspired to move on that. I'll admit it, like they should be able like, okay, I love and I'm understanding what's going on. I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna use my creative sauce and I'm gonna make it something spectacular. You don't necessarily have to, we don't well, the strategist doesn't necessarily have to be the one to come up with like the we can, but it's not always necessary.
To come up with the end result. So there must be some
Yeah.
level too of just like willingness to let go that you must have to have as a strategist, because you can provide the insights, you can provide the way in and the things that spark that creative prompts, but then you have to let someone else take that where they take it. I can't, as a creative, I'm like, that's really hard for me to do. I'm like, no, this is the way we should, like, this is it, we're doing this one. Like, I think about the Barbie
Mm-hmm.
shoe with, like, when she's like the croc and the heel over here and she's like, which one
Mm-hmm.
do you want? We're doing this one. That's kind of how I feel. So it's like, I feel like it might be hard to be like the strategist, to kind of like, you have to let the wind take your thoughts where it may.
I think, yeah, and I think that there needs to be a certain level of like interest as a strategist, but you got to know when to disconnect from the work and just know what your role is, because if not, then you don't know when to like hand off and not like be like, no, wait, like,
Yeah.
you need to know when to kind of like let it be free. I think is super important. I think just because of the nature of the work I do, the volume of the work I do, I'm like, no, I'm going to give this to the trusted creative team that has all of the skills that are necessary to really take this further, because I gotta go over here now and work on
And do
this
this whole
thing.
other thing.
Yeah,
Exactly. So it's easy to let go when you have to, because you have to multitask.
exactly,
um, that's
exactly.
really cool. So I'm curious too, just like how do you feel like your unique POV as a Black woman in the space influences the way you show up in the work? And I'm curious to
Oof.
know how that has changed, if it has changed since becoming a working mother. But we can take those in two sections. So let's start with just like being a Black woman in strategy. How do you think it impacts your work?
Well, I mean, how much time do you have? I
20
just
minutes.
feel like I feel like um Black women, I think that we just naturally have so much cultural richness to ourselves. Whether we want to adapt or not, we are always an anomaly. We always stick out like a sore thumb. We just understand what it feels like to be impacted or to play a certain role within culture. And so the experiences that we have are so vastly different from even Black men. I mean, yes, Black men, Black women, and Black men, we are, united front. But I'm just saying, in terms of like the experiences that we have, they're a little different. And I think through that, become you get so much like cultural knowledge from it.
Yeah.
Um, and so because of that, it naturally colors your work. I think that before I am a strategist, I am a Black woman, and there's nothing like because of that. It like flows into the work no matter what I try to do. Like even if I were to try to be like super traditional, just like there's like no, there's always like that insight or that point of view that's a little bit more different than what my non person of color counterpart can offer in a great way. And I think that we're so embedded in culture, in entertainment, in social media. We are such change makers. We are such trailblazers naturally that because of that, we understand and can pull so many different references from so many different industries and so many different experiences throughout our lifetimes and throughout the decades. That again just makes the work even more impactful and even more human, which is again, as I said, super important.
Yeah. Okay. And then how do you feel like becoming a mother has impacted the way that you work?
Whew. Okay, so I think because of the nature of how old my daughter is, she's only 6 months. She's actually going to be 7 months tomorrow.
Okay.
But because of that, she's my first child. It's so fresh that there's a level of unpredictability that you just have to factor into every single day, every single hour. She might wake up in the middle of a very important presentation and cry really loud. What do you do then? Like there's times where it's like, okay, I have 45 minutes for her, probably, hopefully, to be taking this nap. What work can I get done within it? You just become so much more efficient with your time. There's like a lot less opportunity to just procrastinate or to allow imposter syndrome to show up, because it's like the work has to get done regardless. The client is expecting X, Y, and Z. So you have to make it so. Um, and so I think, yeah, I think there was a level of I don't want to say slackness, but just I guess imposter syndrome. Can you hear that?
No.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, there's a certain level of imposter syndrome that I used to allow to cloud my mind and to cloud the way that I work. And now it's just like there's no time.
Yeah.
In a good way, in a good way, in a great way, actually. I think it's made me a much more efficient, much more serious minded person when it comes to the work that I have to get done. Um, yeah. So it's like it's bittersweet, I guess you could say.
Yeah. That's awesome. I miss when my baby was little before she knew how to roll her eyes and say, I don't want that.
No, yeah,
We
I'm
have full
fully
sentences
basking
now,
in
and that's
that.
her favorite sentence right now. I don't want that. Okay,
Oh
girl.
my God. I can't even imagine. I'm so scared for that era.
Oh, it's coming. But it's cute. It is nice too. But you'll just be looking at her like, how do you exist? It's crazy because you were just a little lump and now you can say things. So just it's basically my experience so far has just been like 2.5 years of that. Just like
Oh
how,
my.
just like amazing.
Whew.
They'll amaze you at every turn. And so that part is nice. It's nice. Um, and it's also a reminder of time passing because, if you ask me, it was 2020 like 5 seconds ago. But then when I look at all that has happened in terms of like having a pregnancy and having a child and having a child that's 2+ years old, it's like, oh, so that many years has passed. They're like little time capsules too. So that
Timestamps. Yes, absolutely. I realize that too. I'm like, okay, so 7 months have passed. You are 7 months. Okay, okay, wow. Like it definitely
yeah,
does help kind of keep a reality check on like what time really is and how fast it can go.
yeah. And how much you can do with it, girl, because you're getting it done.
Ooh, child.
Okay. So speaking of getting it done, what is a career goal that you have set to out for yourself that you have achieved?
So I think something that I'm super proud of is when I took a bad situation or an unfortunate situation and I made something of it. So I was furloughed and then terminated from, I guess you can say, essentially my dream job at the time, 5 years ago. I used to work at Rock Nation. I was a digital marketing manager on the record label for about a year, and I was so scared. I didn't know what was going to happen because I've never been terminated before. And so I was like, okay, well, what happens now? Like, something told me not to go right back into the workforce and to try and kind of explore my creative, like the creative part of me. Because in every job that I've had so far, it was kind of like, this is your job. Uh, Media buying, media planning, SEO, SEM, digital marketing, but it was never anything that was like, you can open up Photoshop and Illustrator and do what you do. Like, it was never that. And it's something that I've always loved Photoshop and Illustrator. Before I even had those things, I had the bootleg aspects of those things. And I would work in that. And so it was really nice to like kind of like set my own pace. And I did that by essentially becoming a freelance entrepreneur and opening up kind of like my own business called by Chanee, and or I still kind of do, make logos, make websites, help with brand consulting for like influencers, small businesses, and things of that nature. And I was really nervous initially, but I had this like fire to just get it done because it was just kind of like time is of the essence. I don't know when again I'll be able to do this because most jobs are kind of like you do this one job. And
Yeah.
before heading back into the workforce, I'm like, no, I need to fully see what this can be. And since then, I've had hundreds of clients and I've learned a lot. And I got to play every role of somebody who has to own an agency. And I got to choose, like, okay, I'm going to offer these services. I got to explore different things, talk to different people, meet different people. And so many job opportunities eventually came of it as well. I got to freelance for IMG for New York Fashion Week. I got to do some work with BBDO for Champion. And I got to do some work with Team Epiphany for HBO. There were just so many different things that were able to come from it because I like took a step and I promoted myself and I really had to be on like the front lines. And I'm the type of person like I'll come to work, I'll be behind the scenes, I'll do what you tell me to do and I'm leave. But this was like, no, in order to actually like achieve anything, you need to broadcast your services, broadcast what you're good at. And so it was like an exercise of exposure therapy for me, as well as help me to sharpen my creative skills over time. So I think that was like my favorite thing that I've done in the last couple of years, and it's really like taken me far. So I'm proud of 2020 Chanee, because 2024 Chanee is like, you did that, girl.
Yeah, I love that. That's so cool. I love a transformative moment that like that comes, whether you like it or not. And I think those can sometimes be the things that propel us closer to who we are meant to be. So I love that for you.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
And then you're also a little bit of a co-founder of a Black beauty community called Melanin Noir. Is that how it's pronounced? Like moi? Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I'm curious, what was the spark for starting it? And also just like what exactly does a beauty community do?
Right. Okay. So it kind of was initially just like a means to an end because we saw a gap in the industry. There were oftentimes at that time, it was like 2016-ish, that there were not a lot of resources that we would look for when it came down to beauty, skincare, hair care for Black women. And so essentially, my co-founder who spearheaded the initiative basically started a blog and would just showcase different products and services and regimens that catered to us that you won't easily find on something like Pinterest at that time. I
Right.
think a lot of the industry has come a long way. Like if you go on Pinterest today, you'll look up anything, you can add for Black women at the end, or they have a filter where you can filter by shade range or like your skin tone. So I'm like, okay, things are now progressing, but it hasn't been progressed for years. And so I being the person I am, and this is why I became a brand consultant at By Chanee, is because I came to my best friend and I'm like, who's also the co-founder, and I'm like, you should do this, and you should post this, and you should do this, and I was just being that person that just kept kind of like funneling ideas. I'm like,
Yeah.
there's an opportunity here, there's an opportunity there, and I think because of that, she was just like, okay, just come, just
Yeah.
be just
You
be
do
a part of the
it.
like just be a part of the platform because clearly you have the desire to be that, and you also have the information and like these innovative ideas that I can't come up with alone. And from that, we've taken it from just kind of like a blog, a beauty blog, to a full blown community. We host annual events. We'll be at Afrotech for the second year in a row in November. We've done a lot of brand partnerships, a lot of collaborations, just with the opportunity, or I guess with the mission to just reach and represent women of color in a way that we are not necessarily always represented, and to share content and resources and information that can educate, that can inspire, and ultimately, craft these initiatives where people can connect and forge like-minded connections with people that also have the same interests as them. And so, yeah, it's a super fun journey, a super fun ride. It's so interesting to see how far we've come. We have a community of basically 9,000 women at this point, and
Wow.
it's an honor to have done so and to have gotten it to this place. And I know there's just so much more room for growth, room for improvement. And we're just looking forward to the road ahead.
That's amazing. 9,000 women. That's amazing.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Wow, I'm taken aback. Okay, so typically I like to end these things by asking folks to share a Black-owned business that you love and want to shout out. But I feel like Melanin Noir does exactly that. So instead, can you tell people where they can find Melanin Noir online and how they can check out your recommendations there?
Yeah, of course. Okay, so I would love if people could visit melaninmois.com. You can see the past events that we've done. We have tons of blog posts through the years that are still relevant. And that's where you can primarily connect with us. You can also follow us on Instagram, melanin.moi. And on there, on a weekly basis, we'll share things regarding fashion, skincare, hair care, nail care, all of the things that, Black women love and Black women like to connect on. And we love to engage with our followers and see what it is that they're looking for and some information that they're looking for on the web that they haven't been able to find so that we can obviously provide that for them. So, and we also like to throw events. So if you do subscribe to us, you'll definitely be informed about those.
Okay, amazing. While people have out their phones and you're following at melanin dot moi on Instagram, also you should be following at Sip Black Tea on Instagram. So go ahead and do that, and you can find out about all of our future episodes before they drop. Thank y'all so much for watching this one. Please check out all of the other episodes on our website, and thank you again, Chanee, for being here. We will see y'all later. Bye.